So every morning, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to think to myself, what is the one most important thing to do today? And after you do that, you're done. You give yourself permission to say, today was a very successful day.
Ooh, that hit me.
At the end of the year, you've done 365 extremely important things.
The most important thing you did.
But the most important thing.
Most important thing?
And probably the most important thing.
Most important thing.
Was get him out while he's still plastic.
A gentleness.
Don't ever feed him after midnight.
Just remember when everybody else is shooting the same direction.
And a raw egg.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Maximalists, the show where we focus on ways, ideas, experiments that can help us maximize experience while minimizing costs. The best things in life are free, folks. And I'm here with one of the best things. One of the greatest blessings and privileges of my life is my older brother, Geoff. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud.
Skål.
That's what they say in Sweden?
Indeed.
Sounds like a type of dip or chew, doesn't it?
That's where it comes from, actually.
Today I want to tell the story of what I consider to be one of the greatest insights of my life. If there were a Mount Rushmore, this would be not Abraham Lincoln, but Jefferson. If there were a Justice League, this would be Aquaman, but not the Scuba Steve version like Jason Momoa Aquaman. So basically, like a lot of you, the pandemic has been tough. I was broke as a joke. So what I was presented with was an opportunity to see my family for the first time in 2 years. My mom, my brother's wife, Anna, their friends and family, as well as Augustine, who you all saw in Geoff and I's last video together about the social dilemma. And just long story short, Geoff and I had a conversation. I told him about this, and they said something to the effect of, every day I wake up and I think, what is the most important thing to do today? Everything else I let go of. One thing a day. That idea took me from negative money to earning 2 times what I earned last month. And I was able to get here. This is Sweden. I'm here. You're there. You're running in circles. You get an idea. Now you're there. That's a sort of magic to me. Geoff, what inspired this kind of way of moderating your energy and focusing your energy?
I think most people have probably heard of like the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
Pareto principle. 80% of your output or your productivity or your success or your money, in this case, comes from 20% of what you do, which means that 80% of what you're doing is pretty useless. You spend a lot of time emailing, meetings, doing stuff you're not appreciated for. Maybe somebody told you to do it, nobody notices that you actually do it afterwards. So busy, so stressed, so anxious. And yet we don't seem to accomplish anything.
When you adopt a single tasking perspective, you start to look more like the Michael Phelps of the world, or the Simone Biles, the Muhammad Ali's, the Eddie Van Halen's. Those great creatures that just found one thing and ran with it in this elongated flow state where they're not exerting effort, but they are sort of dancing and impacting at the highest level.
Absolutely.
You know?
I'll give you some concrete examples. Like I've worked with a lot of startup tech companies, right? Mm-hmm. The thing that you're tempted to do is to cast your net wide because you haven't really figured out what's working. In one startup I was working with, we were addressing education technology. And we had gotten some success penetrating a market for a certain curriculum. So we tried to address another market.
Instead of just staying the course.
We hadn't figured this one out. We're below 30%. We're not dominating here.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure this one out, which is totally different, by the way.
Yep.
So all our efforts over here are not really helping over here. And we're losing over here because we're not focused.
If you were juggling, how high could you throw one ball into the air versus 3?
Yeah.
You go.
Yeah, and if you're juggling, have you mastered that first catch?
And then you can do 2 and catch both of
3.
them.
Setting up an e-commerce property in East Africa. Mm-hmm. This has never been done there before. We've got to figure out a lot of problems. I mean, it's not like setting up Amazon.com in the US because There's no delivery. There's no mailing addresses. People do not have internet access.
No roads.
You don't have companies who are used to working with internet vendors.
Yeah.
So we've got to do everything from scratch. Finally, I sat down with my team and I said, look, guys, you know what we got to do? We got to focus on 5 customers. We've got to give them a really good experience. And then we're going to figure out the rest. We looked at the list and we said, these 5 vendors are really game. They're really keen. They've got good stuff that people want. And they're very engaging with us. And I would assign one person who works with each one of them day or night, 100 times a day, almost helping them run their business. And after about a month of this, these guys are just selling like crazy on the platform. And they are loving it. And they are turning around and telling all their friends, this is the greatest thing.
Wow.
And they would explain and teach them how to do it. And before we knew it, we had, 50 of these same vendors who are just as active, just as engaged, and just as successful. You know the kind of experience you have, and you turn around and you're like, everyone I know needs to do this.
Fire comes to mind.
Yeah.
Would you go and put a spark here and a spark
No.
there and a
Yeah.
spark there? Or would
Absolutely.
you focus on building the fire so that now you can take that fire anywhere, right?
Yeah.
But love, the term love also comes to mind when I'm thinking about whenever you're flowing or you're focused on an activity. I mean, people talk about woodworking or, activities where you can't help but flow, like making love or surfing or skydiving. I mean, we really revere these activities because they feel like love. They feel like you are creating time, space, giving yourself fully to one thing. And you're remembering why it's so meaningful to you. And you're remembering patterns that you'd forgotten. The single tasking idea in this complicated, chaotic, thought-filled world, comparison-filled world, it feels like picking one thing for your life is absurd. And what I loved about the simplicity of the MIT theory, as I'm calling it, the most important thing theory, is that it's what's the most important thing today.
Yep.
It's not in your life.
No. And I found that you get places with that because you can't tell the future. You can't predict who you will become. You don't have to figure it all out. The world changes so fast and work changes so fast and there's so many choices. The ground is always shifting underneath you. So you can't figure it all out because as soon as you do, it's different. That's what I like about this approach. It's adaptive. It allows you to really reset yourself every day. And if you were wrong yesterday, you can be right tomorrow. To the best of my ability, right now, what is the most important thing I could be doing today? And I will do that thing. And as soon as I do that thing, today is a success. Check. Do it again tomorrow.
When I'm checked with my most important thing, I don't usually stop.
Yeah.
I read an article one time that was like, if you struggle with cleaning, yes, that's me. Tell yourself you don't have to clean your whole room. You have to clean one sock. Because the human brain, when it does one thing and it goes, I did what I said I was supposed to do. Maybe I'll do the other sock too. And then all of a sudden you're flowing. Flow is thought meets emotion. Flow is meaning. Flow is God singing through your ventricles. It's very important because we have so much shame. We have so much comparison energy. I've done videos on the channel about our inadequacy, our sense of inadequacy, for example. So we have a lot of that to contend with. If I put a simple condition of just be brave a little bit today. There's something is scratching you like an itch that if you did it, it would start a domino effect. And I'm just going to tell you to do 1 minute of it. It's like if you wanted to be a stand-up comedian your whole life, I'd say do 1 minute of stage time in front of 3 people. Stand away from the audience like Mitch Hedberg if you have to. Because it's all about the bravery of just taking that one step in the thing that scares you but also excites you the most. And luckily, most of the time, the things that scare us weren't as bad as we thought. So when you take the first step, not only are you not scared, but you also feel this incredible sense of accomplishment that drives you into the second and the third. And then the whole hamster wheel turns off and you might flow for 3 hours. If I could do that, and one day this will be the most important thing, but when I do that with my taxes, I could stand to make $4 or $5 grand from 1 day of work, because there's certain things that I've avoided for months.
Why do people avoid doing stuff?
Okay.
First of all, you talked about the fear.
Yeah.
And as you said, when you actually try most things, they're not as scary as you think, or as uncomfortable, or as boring, or it's whatever.
Yeah.
So you just stick a pinky toe in, and you're like, not so bad. And if you give yourself permission to say, you know what, if it is so bad, you can walk away. But at least you tried it. Second reason why people don't do stuff. Willpower is limited. And you cannot summon willpower. It must be parceled out very carefully. If you're in a shame spiral, and you and I have both done this.
Yes.
My whole life's a disaster.
Yeah.
I don't have any money. I'm alone. No, my friends hate me. My family is ashamed of me.
Yo.
Then you're like, you know what? Tomorrow is the day. We will revolutionize everything all at once. Maybe you even do.
Maybe you get a week.
Maybe you even do some of those things for a week.
Yeah.
But then you run out of steam because every single one of those things is not a habit at that point. You are actively using your willpower to accomplish each thing. It's depleting. And you need to wait till the next day and then it's up again. And if the other things that you're doing are also sapping the willpower bar, you run out very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens? You're ashamed of yourself. And then you avoid. And then you can't do anything. And then you have to use willpower for things that you were even in the habit of doing before because you're so ashamed and you're so avoiding. So instead, you just do one thing. You're like, you know what? Tomorrow, I'm going to wake up earlier. 15 minutes earlier. 1 hour earlier, maybe. Or tomorrow, I'm not going to eat ice cream for dinner. I'm going to eat a real dinner.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll play a video game where you have a bar and you'll eat some sort of apple or magical thing and it'll increase your bar.
Yeah.
And I think that's what accomplishing something feels like.
Well, here's where I'm going to challenge anybody listening to this.
Okay.
The reason why this advice is not a cliche,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually really difficult,
And maybe even revolutionary.
maybe revolutionary, but definitely difficult,
Okay.
is because the other side of it is you have to say, these are the things that are not important. And a lot of those things you feel are important.
Mm-hmm.
You've convinced yourself that they're important. They give you some dopamine boost to do them. Part of this is actually allowing for the trade-off and saying, the most important thing for me right now is that I need to get a job.
Yep.
The most important thing for me right now is not to work out every day in the gym. The most important thing for me right now is not to go on a lot of Tinder dates. The most important thing for me right now is to not get a funky fresh outfit every morning.
Yeah.
And
To rent a Lamborghini and pretend it's mine.
life is pretty long when you think about it in this way. Like every year I want to do one big trip. Oh man, but that means I'll only get 30, 40, 50 big trips. But that's a lot of big trips, actually.
Yeah.
And if you really focus on a peak experience that you're looking for with each of those big trips, I mean, it's an incredible richness of experience.
If you're a person who is lacking direction, pick one thing. Enjoy the accomplishment of that. Enjoy the flow state. Take as long as you want. Do it however you want. Take time in the morning to decide what that thing is. If you're someone who's doing way too much, focus on the letting go once you have done that first thing. And yes, continue on with your day. Enjoy things with a sense of this is extra. You survive. You're a human being. Most animals in the world are only concerned with surviving. They're not thinking, what's my identity? Am I influential? Have I done all this? Go look at an animal. We're the only ones that lash ourselves with, I should have done 2 things today. If I have to sit down and go, I don't care if I get anything done, but those taxes, I'm going to just open the email and get started. I feel the difference versus doing 10 things that I can do every day and that aren't a problem anymore. It's quality over quantity. Pareto principle, the compounding effect of facing that one domino that can push over the most other dominoes.
Only measure the one thing. And give yourself permission to use that willpower on the most important force multiplier in your life that day. And then just play the rest of the day.
And please like, subscribe, hit the bell if you want notifications, and we will be back with another powerful idea for living a better life.